Hi, good morning. Yeah, it's pretty frightening to be fair, but I really don't think we're getting a fair shake of the stick. I mean, one of the charges is related to an alleged payment to Roberto Mancini. Chelsea, who got in before FFP, 5 years before us, and then started pulling up the drawbridge, they spent 160 million sacking managers, but we're not allowed to pay our manager a little bit extra because we're not allowed to spend money that has been put into the club, just like Roman Abramovich did.
That doesn't make any sense, Joe. That's not the allegation that's being made against you. Whataboutery isn't an answer. They've paid managers off, and what you are being alleged is you had a parallel contract. You had Mancini being paid for by Man City, and then another contract that was part of his contract with Man City, but wasn't being featured on their balance sheet, being paid somewhere else. That's a completely different discussion.
Well, it's not a different discussion because if...
Please.
Well, it's not, because if FFP wasn't so stringent unnecessarily, we wouldn't need to give out...
Well, okay, but
if
not liking the rules isn't an argument. The rules are the rules. You don't like the rules? Tough. What's that got to do with the price of cheese?
Well, it's got everything to do with it. Because
no, it hasn't. They're the rules.
Well, it has, because it shows how everything is a cartel. The Premier League would love it if they had 4 teams competing for the title every single year and everyone else just has to suck it.
Well, that's a ridiculous observation. Why do you think that?
Because, well, look at the formation of the Super League. You've got historic teams who've been much more successful in the past, who didn't have the money, they were running up huge amounts of debt, and they were going to get all these billions from the Super League. Of course, City were invited into it, but it's always been like
that.
They
are then.
Yeah, but Joe, I think the Premier League loved it when Leicester City broke the mould and won the league on that day. Anyway, we're going off the topic really.
But it makes.
Do you think, Joe, you're due answers from your own football club?
Well, I mean, look, it'd be great to know what's going on.
Well, the answer is yes, isn't it? The answer is yes. It's not a qualified no or maybe. The bottom line is you don't like the rules. You think the rules are weighted against you. You talk about Chelsea firing managers and paying off 160 million quid, which has got nothing to do with the price of cheese. You're being alleged that you have misrepresented sponsorships. You have misrepresented the contracts that players and managers have been on. And you know what? That's really easy to prove if you haven't done it.
Why do sponsorships come into it? Like, oh, great, United have got a tractor.
Shall I tell you why? Shall I tell you why? Because the main sponsors that you were using were indexed to the ownership of the club, and the fair value of a market price, which is assessed by independent commissions that have nothing to do with vested interest, looked at those and went, that's an inflated commercial sponsorship deal to overcome a challenge. That's why it's relevant.
Well, it's not relevant because if...
Not to you, it's not, because you don't like it.
Well, if we was allowed to spend the money that we were...
But that's not how it works. You can't just do what you want. There's a financial fair play regulation in place for a reason. You might not like it, and you might suggest other people need to get caught in it as well.
The historic clubs at the top, right? How Harry Maguire's inflated. The guy's awful.
Hang on a second. That's a transfer which you capitalise on your balance sheet. This is something very different. You've got a partner or a business that your owners own sponsoring the football club, and sponsoring it at a price that's not reflective of market value for every other sponsorship deal around the world. And Man City, by the way, don't have the same intrinsic value for sponsorship than some of the other bigger football clubs that have more legacy relationships around the world. So your argument is just, I don't like it because it's Man City. That's your argument.
Well, Joe, if we finish with this, City say they look forward to this matter being put to rest once and for all. Do you think it will be?
I hope so. And... you know, if we are exonerated like we were through CAS...
No, you weren't. You weren't exonerated. You got a £10 million fine, and you got around it by time bars. You weren't exonerated.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.